What's up, Southwest Student Ministry? Welcome to week 2 of our big new series, Faves. Last week we had a lot of fun talking about music, and this week we're going to be talking about movies. And so really, what we're going to kind of focus in on is story, and then get into our favorite movies and why we have our favorite movies, what it is about our movies that we love so much. So, quick story. If you have ever been around my family, our 3 little boys, much, you know they are always playing some game. They love to play lions, tigers. We're always putting out fires in our front yard, backyard. They always want me to call them to fires or emergencies, or we're pulling over bad guys. They're always living this story. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking about them because it's just like innate in them. It just comes natural to them. I never tell them, hey, y'all act like tigers and go kill the bad tiger, or y'all act like firefighters and go put out the big fire, or you're police officers, go get the bad guy. There's just something in them that wants to be a part of a story, and they want to live that out in their day-to-day life. And I think it says something just about human nature and who we are. We want to live in a bigger story. We want to be a part of a bigger story. It reminds me of something I've shared this before, I think, that Donald Miller writes in one of his books. He talks about a friend who has a teenage daughter, and his friend's teenage daughter is really struggling. She's making poor choices, struggling with her faith, not following Jesus. And so Donald Miller and his friend are talking about this. And his friend is asking Donald for advice, for help. And so Donald essentially tells him, what he tells him, which I've always found fascinating, it stuck with me, is he says, it sounds like your daughter needs to live in a bigger story. It sounds like the story she's living in is boring, is flat, doesn't have any life and purpose and meaning and sacrifice to it. You need to invite her into a bigger story. And so what that does in Donald's friend is they begin to see faith differently. They begin to take their faith a little more seriously. And so faith is no longer this thing where we just go to church and we're a nice person and we try not to be mean to people. But faith becomes this bigger story that, just like Jesus, at the end of his life in the Great Commission, he says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to you, therefore go. That's a huge story. Jesus is giving us all his authority and power and saying, I need you in my story. Go live it out. And so that's the same calling that we are called into today. And it takes a lot of risk. It takes a lot of sacrifice. It's not the easiest life, but it's big. And it can have a huge impact if we will surrender our lives to that story. So I hope you'll think about that as Brian and I are about to have a conversation. You'll get to hear us talk about story, how we all want to live in a story, and then you'll get to hear from a lot of us talk about our favorite movies. Maybe we'll go watch some of those movies. And as you do, I just want to encourage you to think about, what is the story I am living in? Am I living in this just kind of flat, boring, go to church, be a nice person story? Or am I living in this Great Commission, disciple of Jesus, give my life, sacrifice, risk it all for him story? Because we were created, just like my little boys, we were created to live in a big story. And until we live in that story, I think we're restless, and we will be restless. So I hope you enjoy this conversation, enjoy this week. Love y'all, miss y'all. Hope this is a blessing to you. All right, Brian Mashburn, welcome to our hit new Southwest Student Ministry series called Faves. It hasn't quite gone viral yet, but I'm sure that will, especially with you on here with this big Zoom call, I have no doubt. So thank you for joining us this week. Last week we talked about music. This week we're going to talk about movies. We're going to kind of talk about story. So that's why for most of y'all probably know this, but if you don't know, Brian loves movies. And he loves great stories, but he loves movies. So I want to have Brian on here, have a quick conversation about that. So Brian, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed last week's on music.
Yeah, awesome. It was fun to do. All right, so a couple quick questions that I did not send you before this, just to
Uh-oh.
throw you off, get you ready. Okay. All right, here we go. Do you remember the last movie that you and I watched together?
Oh,
Uh,
give me a minute. Oh, man. Were we on a trip?
we were on a trip.
Dallas?
Yeah,
Yes. Hold it. Bohemian Rhapsody.
got it. There you go.
Yes. Yes.
Nice. Okay. Next question. Who's your favorite actor?
Oh, man. I don't know if I have a favorite actor.
Okay.
I have a favorite movie, and it
Yeah.
has an actor in it that I've always liked, but
Okay.
yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite actor.
Okay. Yeah. We'll get to favorite movie at the end.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Do you remember first movie you ever saw in the theater?
Oh, man. No, there's no way. There's
Okay.
no way I remember the first movie I ever saw. I would have been pretty little, and we didn't go watching a lot of movies. So I should be able to remember that, but I can't.
Okay. I was just gonna let you date yourself. If you wanted to.
Yeah, well, okay. I do remember the earliest movie I can remember.
Okay.
It was probably about 4th or 5th grade. It was a field trip with my school. And we went and saw Charlotte's Web, the animated version of Charlotte's Web. I still remember that being a big deal.
Okay.
Getting to see that movie.
Charlotte's Web. Nice. All right. Longest movie you've ever watched?
It might be one of the Lord of the Rings trilogies. Those were all almost, not all of them, but it seems like one of them was like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So that might have been, one of those was probably the longest.
Okay. Least favorite movie you've ever watched?
Oh man, what was it? Carrie and I, on a date night in Houston, walked out on a movie. But it was so bad, I must have blocked it out.
Okay.
It's the only time I've ever walked out of a movie, I think.
And then last one, favorite place to watch a movie? Theater, home? What's your favorite?
Yeah, theater. But right now it's Hollywood with those reclining seats. Those things are awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't do it much anymore. We have such access to movies, but if we go out to a movie, that's my favorite spot.
Okay. Cool. All right. So first question, have you always loved movies? When did you really get into movies and watching a lot of movies?
Yeah, I didn't watch a lot of movies growing up, like I said, but I'm sure I enjoyed it, but I got passionate about movies after college. First of all, I think that's when I started having the means to go to movies, was after I was working and had a little more independence. But what I really fell in love with, I was really thinking about this, and I appreciate the question, is I felt a parallel between my life now that had this massive purpose as a youth minister. I felt like I'd really found a purpose. And whenever I'd watch a movie, I could feel an alignment with the purpose in a plot of a movie. You know, all movies, there's a plot and there's usually some purpose, even if it's small. And so I felt kind of like I would find myself in the movie and in the character. Whatever the plot was didn't matter. It's that there was a plot and that there was a purpose. So I started enjoying that experience, I think. But then secondly, I kept explaining to students in ministry, whether it was through teaching or in counseling settings or just hanging out, and we'd be talking spiritually. I found myself using movie scenes to explain to them something. And I got a lot of, oh yeah, and so I think I fell in love with going to movies because I started then thinking in terms of spiritual themes that I would find, whether it was in the whole movie or not. It could just be a little scene that depicted some spiritual truth or godly truth or trait. So I think that's why I really started being passionate about movies.
Yeah. So that kind of gets us into our next thing I want to ask you about. So this week's about movies, but really it's about great stories, right? Which is at the heart of every great movie. Is a great story. And you and I, we've talked about this before, about John Eldredge talks a lot about epic stories. So what do you think it is about great epic stories that draws us in?
Yeah, John Eldridge really, I was passionate about movies for a long time before I really understood why. And John Eldridge really gave me kind of a vocabulary to explain myself in that. And I think he does tap into something universal that stories are really the language of the heart, whereas facts matter, of course. Facts matter. But it's through stories that we really engage as a whole person. And I think how he explains it best is when he says, think about life. It comes to you as a story, not as a set of facts, not as a recipe or set of rules. You wake up. What happens next? You don't get to know. Is it raining outside? Is there sunshine? Did you wake up because of a phone call? Was there an emergency? What's happening today? What happens next? And so life presents more as a story. So I think that's one of the reasons, and our hearts kind of are engaged when we hear the story. So the example I've always used, I think I got this from John, but I use it when I'm explaining this, is when I'm saying more than the facts matter, the story matters. If I come home and one of my kids' cars is wrecked in the driveway and I walk in, what's the first thing I'm going to ask, Adrian?
What happened?
What happened? Because it matters, not just the fact that they got a wreck. That doesn't matter near as much. Whose fault was it? Did anyone get hurt? Was alcohol involved? There's all kinds of factors in the story that are going to help me find myself and what I'm supposed to do. And that may be the biggest thing, is we all want to know what we're supposed to do. And the story is what gives us that.
Right. So if I agree with that, I think stories are the language of the heart. So what do you think we can learn from the movies that we watch? Like what is it? What do they have to teach us? Maybe what do they have to teach us about our own stories?
Boy, that's a great question. I think that probably you could get deep, you could get in the weeds a little bit, because depending on the movie, there's different things you can find out about your story. But generally speaking, the great stories always seem to have some kind of ideal that is set up, and then there's a problem to be solved. And then there's always seems to be like a hero of some kind that is working towards solving that problem. And one of my favorite things is it's not just about the hero, it's about some larger group or organization or purpose. There's implications that aren't just about the hero, at least in the best stories. And so I think when we resonate with that stuff, I think we find out about ourselves, generally speaking now, that we all want a role to play. And it needs to be involved in something bigger than us that's worthy of our lives. It's like we inherently know if it's just about us, that's too small a story. If it's just about me and getting what I want or whatever, it needs to belong to something bigger. And I think there is an inner hero in all of us that wants to be fighting for a greater good, that might have a personal motivation, but also has a group transformation element to it. It makes a difference. We want to make a difference.
Yeah. So last question. What is your favorite movie of all time? And why?
Yeah, that one's easy for me. It goes way back, talking about dating myself, but it's Braveheart. And so a lot of the students might not know that movie, but it's about a character named William Wallace, who is a hero in Scotland in the great struggle of Scotland to break out of the oppression of England. And, it has a lot of those elements that I love. I think that's why I'm drawn to it, is it really, in like very clear fashion, has all of those elements. There's an ideal that's set up. The ideal's not being met in the movie. There's a hero, but he's not alone. And he has to gather others. So there's a communal aspect that I love about it. People got to sign on to this bigger mission. There's a part that this is worthy of your life. Like, this is worth dying for element that I love that about it. I want I want to die for something. I do want to die for something. There's something in me. That movie captures that. Wallace has like both a personal motivation, because in the movie his wife, his sweet wife, was killed by the problem, but there's a group benefit too. So there's like a personal motivation and a group motivation, and I think that's the best when you can find that. The best story to be a part of is when it connects to your own personal story, but to other people's story too, and so that it's personal, but it's not selfish.
Awesome. Graham.
You got kids. Speaking of story. Oh.
Say hi. Awesome. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me, man. I love your students.
It's been super helpful. Excited for this week and for story and for movies. So thanks for joining
too.
us, man.
You bet. Check you later.
Hey guys, so today I'm just going to talk a little bit about my favorite movie. My favorite movie is Mamma Mia, the original one. It's my favorite movie just because I really like the music in it. All the music is from a band named ABBA, and they have some really good music, and it goes really well with this storyline and stuff. It's just really cool. And me and my grandma also used to watch it a lot when I was little, so I connect a bunch of memories with that, and it's just really cool. So I'm sure a lot of y'all have seen Mamma Mia. It's a pretty popular movie, but if you haven't, I'll just kind of explain the plot a little bit. It's about a young woman who's going to get married, and her whole life she didn't know who her dad was. So she ends up finding her mom's diary, and she figures out her dad could be one of these 3 guys that's written about in her mom's diary. So she ends up inviting these 3 guys out to Greece to go to her wedding, and it's a big thing because she didn't tell her mom. So it turns into a very confusing mess when the dads figure out that the mom didn't know, and the mom finds them and everything. And so that's kind of the basic plot without giving any spoilers. My favorite scene in the whole movie is probably there's a part in it where Donna and her 2 best friends are going around the town singing and dancing, and it's so much fun. They really let loose, and they're just goofy with it, and like it just seems like so much fun. And I kind of like, my friend group is kind of similar to theirs, and like we're kind of carefree and like we're goofy and stuff, and so I've always related to that scene just because I see so much of myself and my friends in it. And yeah, that's about it.
One of my favorite movies is probably The Pursuit of Happiness. I saw it for the first time in like 6th grade, so I wasn't really old enough to like understand what was fully going on. So when I got older, I rewatched it, and I just really loved it. And I've seen it a few more times since then, but a few things I really liked about it were just the themes that were carried on throughout the movie. One of those was just like not giving up on your dreams, and then another one was just if you're at the bottom, you have to work hard to get back up to the top. And a scene that I really liked in the movie was when Chris, the main character, was talking to his son while they were out playing basketball, and the son told his dad this might be something he'd want to do in the future. And then he said to the son, you can't do that, that just, dreams don't really make the money, you might not make it. And the son got really sad, and he could tell, and he felt bad that he said that. So he told him, don't let anybody tell you that you can't chase your dreams. You better chase your dreams. Don't let anybody tell you can't, not even me. And that kind of stuck with me. So the movie kind of taught me just to trace your dreams, whatever they are, just chase them. And then if you're at the bottom, you have to work really hard to get to the top. And if you're at the rock bottom of life, just you have to dig in more with God and be closer to God, to get closer to the top.
Okay, so my favorite movie is High School Musical, and it's the first one because, I know, it sounds super lame and you're probably gonna think I'm stupid, but for real, it just like, I don't know, it came out when I was in elementary school, and I literally watched it every single day after school for months. And so it just brings back those memories, and I was that weird kid that had all of the school supplies and stuff that had it on it. And so I don't know, it just brings back a bunch of memories, and watching it with my best friends when I was little, and then like at Summer Excitement we had a High School Musical theme one year, and so we learned the dance to We're All in This Together and did it at our party, and it was just super fun. Then my senior year of high school we did the same thing, and I dressed up as a sheep and did it and in front of the entire school, and yes, that's embarrassing, but it's also just silly and fun. And I guess that's one of the biggest reasons I love that movie, is just all the memories that come with it. And then I know this also sounds super cheesy, but it does have a good message of we're all in this together, and don't stick to the status quo, get out of your shell, and you don't have to be the jock that is only the jock and can't do anything else, but you can love music too, and you don't have to be a nerd. That's your only thing that defines you. You can be whatever you want to be. And so, I don't know, I think it is very cheesy to think that, but does have good messages behind it, even though it's maybe a little lame sometimes. So High School Musical will forever be in my heart.
Hey guys, it's Nathan. So Adrian asked me to share a little bit about my favorite movie and why. My favorite movie is Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. And this is my favorite movie because it really shows, it teaches us lessons as well as kind of ending the series in kind of a bow-ish type scene where everything's all good and right with everything, but kind of leading up to it, it's kind of, there's one lesson that's echoed from episode 4 to episode 6, and this lesson is persevere through every single circumstance and outthink, and then you'll most likely win. In episode 6, there's a lot of times where you think the Empire will finally win, but they just don't, and it's honestly one of the favorite and awesome parts to watch about it for me. Like, my favorite scene is where it's Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and Darth Sidious, and they're all in a room together. Luke has found out earlier in the movie that Darth Vader is his father. Now, he is a little distraught about this because he never really knew his father. So Luke and Darth Vader are forced to battle each other. And obviously that's no easy fight, fighting your own dad. And then the father-son duo actually triumphs over Darth Sidious, which represents evil, and it shows how good can always triumph over evil. So that's another lesson. One of my other favorite, this is just my favorite movie, just because it's directed perfectly, and the action and story in it is amazing.
So, hi everyone. My favorite movie would have to be Harry Potter, Prisoner of Azkaban. Out of the whole series, that's why. That's my favorite. And one of my absolute favorite scenes is when Harry and Sirius come together, and Sirius is explaining everything and how he was just trying to get Peter to confess, and then he tells Harry that he's his uncle, and after all of this craziness is over with, that he wants to take Harry home with him and help raise him. And this is a really important scene in the movie, and it taught me that our looks on people, our perspective on people can be way off, and it could be so different than what the person actually is. And Sirius is brought up as this awful guy that killed people, and is just he's not a good guy, but then he explains to Harry that it was just a big misunderstanding, and it just taught me that a lot of people's opinions can change your opinion on someone even though you haven't talked to them or met them. I think it's important to get to know them before you buy into those opinions. So yeah, thanks.
Hey guys, so my favorite movie is probably Remember the Titans. This is I love this movie because it's a great movie about some guys coming together and just overcoming the social norms at that time and becoming just a great football team that ends up being one of the greatest high school football teams of all time. And I would say that my favorite scene from this movie is when the backup quarterback comes in, Sunshine, and he overcomes his fears and makes a great play. And also what I've been taught by this movie is probably that we don't have to always give in to what society is telling us, and we can be our own person and also be great while not doing what society is telling us to do.
Hey y'all. So Adrian asked me to tell y'all about one of my favorite movies, and the movie that I picked was Spider-Man Homecoming. It's one of my favorites for a couple of reasons. The first being Tom Holland. Obviously, he's just really cute, and that's just really a bonus. But the second reason is that it's a really cool coming-of-age story that I found really easy to relate to. A couple of my favorite scenes, once they're in a hotel and Peter is trying to figure out some stuff in his suit and then gets frustrated and tells his friend that he's tired of being treated like a kid while jumping up and down on the bed. And so that was just really funny to me. And then another is just after he's had this big confrontation and got beat pretty badly, and he has to decide whether or not he wants to keep fighting and whether or not he can keep fighting, like if he's good enough. And it was really cool to just watch that play out, knowing that I face the same struggle, like am I good enough every day? What this movie taught me was that you are enough, even if you think you're not. You are enough because you're you, not because of any power or any sport you play or who you hang out with. Like you are enough, but at the same time, it's okay to ask for help if you need it. Like even Spider-Man has a guy in the chair. Like you have help, but you're good enough no matter what. And so there you go. One of my favorite movies, Spider-Man Homecoming. I love y'all and I miss y'all so much.
Hey guys, it's David. So one of my favorite movies is Forrest Gump. This movie has such a great story with so many different aspects to it that make it so easy to love for so many people. It has drama, comedy, action, and awesome acting. So when I was playing soccer in Dallas, we had to drive down there for what seemed like every weekend in the fall and the spring. And my sister and I would watch Forrest Gump almost every time we went down there. And so we got to know the movie very well. I always love the scene where Bubba tells Forrest about his favorite types of shrimp and what you can do with shrimp. And it seems like the scene just goes on forever. He just keeps listing stuff in all kinds of situations, like scrubbing the floor to taking apart guns. And that part just really makes me laugh, and it's a really fun scene that helps sets up scenes later in the movie. But as funny as Forrest Gump is, the most famous quote in it is actually really good. Forrest famously says, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." Those are great words to live by and should inspire all of us to just roll with the punches and really adapt to what comes. And when you watch the movie and see those final few minutes, it's so full of emotions, and it's just really great when you look at life and you look at the famous quote that Forrest gives us. See y'all later.
What's up, guys? So time for my movie recommendation, which I know everyone has been anxiously awaiting. As you know, if you know me, I'm not a big movie guy. I'm sorry. I love movies. I don't watch a ton of them. So I am by no means an astute film critic or anything close to that. But I'm excited to tell you about this movie. It's the best movie I've seen in the last couple of years. And if you have seen it, you know that. I think if you've seen it, you love it. If you don't love it, we can probably still be friends. But also, if you've seen it, go see it again. So it's this movie called Wonder. Wonder came out, I think, 3 years ago. It's about a 10-year-old boy named Augie. And Augie is born with this rare facial deformity, which causes him to look different than everyone else, a lot different, and causes him to stand out. And it's about how do you, as someone who looks very different than everyone else, in a culture that says we all need to look the same and blend in, what's that like for you? And so, as you can imagine, he faces bullying, faces his own fears and doubts, and it just walks through his story. But what I love about the movie is two things. One is you get to see Augie realize that he does have a story, and his story matters, and he has a big role to play. Even though he looks different, even though people may say he doesn't, he does have a role to play. And then second thing is you get to see his peers wrestle with, how are we going to treat this kid who looks different? Because are we going to treat him the way we treat most people when they come into our school and they look different? We're going to push them down and make ourselves feel better about ourselves? Or we're going to see him different and realize he still has gifts. The image of God is still in him. And so you get to see all of that come together, and it's painful and tough and messy, and that's life. So I hope you will go see this movie. You will be, I think you'll be changed and definitely challenged and encouraged by it. So go see it. Talk to y'all later. See ya.